Hey, everybody. So, when it comes to forbidden speech, we're familiar with Lashon Hara, not speaking negatively about another person, even when it's true. If there's no purpose to it, there's no benefit, there's no reason to, just spreading gossip and such, that's off limits. That's asur, it's forbidden. Lashon Hara, speaking evil of another. But there are other mitzvot that people are less familiar with, also having to do with speech. And the context comes from Baba Metzia that we're studying now in Daf Yomi. And it talks about ona'at mamon. It talks about hurting somebody financially, price gouging, overcharging. Or the other way, let's say, the seller's making a tremendous mistake in how he priced something. You don't tell him and you buy it for way under what it costs and he loses money. And so we have those prohibitions when it comes to finances. But then it's the same thing they talk about ona'at devarim, where you hurt a person with your words. And there's two different examples that they give, two different areas that they talk about. And one is, for instance, going back to buying and selling, you go to a merchant, you go into a store, and I know this is somewhat limited today because everything is so corporate and the person you're dealing with doesn't necessarily own the company or own the product. But let's talk about more of like a mom and pop shop type of thing. And you go in there and you're inquiring about the article, but you have no intention whatsoever of buying the thing. So you're not supposed to do that according to Jewish law. And the commentaries give a couple examples, give a couple reasons, why that is. One they say is you have no intention of buying that, but the seller doesn't know that. And so he sees someone walking in, asking about his product, and then he walks out and then he goes, oh, maybe I'm overcharging for this thing. And then he puts his price down because people others see people say, well, that guy didn't buy it, so maybe there's something wrong with it, which there isn't. And so the guy ends up getting a loss of money because you just kind of waltzed in there with zero intention of buying the thing and created this kind of negative awareness or association with the product. But the other more basic idea behind this is that you're wasting the guy's time. Like, you have no intention of buying this thing. He could be making sale to somebody else. And so you're stealing from him in a certain sense because you're taking from his livelihood that he can't now use his time and expertise with other people, which, by the way, is really a terrible, wrong thing to do. You go into a store, let's say you go into a mom and pop appliance store, and you start asking all these questions about a particular refrigerator or whatever. And then what do? You turn around and you go buy it on Amazon. Now that you found out which is the best one. Oh, I found it on Amazon for cheaper. I'm going to go get that. Yes, I know sometimes they'll match the price, but the bottom line is what you're paying for. Like, yeah, pay a little bit extra because the guy's expertise, that's what you're paying for. Value that. And then another example of Ona Davarim that the Gemara talks about is a person who has, let's say for instance, a convert, where you remind them of that, or anything in a person's past that you kind of like remind them, oh yeah, I remember you think you're so hot and special. Well, I remember you when such and such, or I know that you used to have an alcohol problem. Whatever it is, where you remind a person of something that's painful of their past, and you stick it to them like that. Onat Devarim, forbidden. Now, the commonality between these two things is you can get away with it. You could do either of these things, and there's no actual, you have to pay something. You have to pay a person for doing that. Which, by the way, when it comes to hurting a person's feelings and pointing out something about their past, the Gemara says that's actually worse than the one where you took away money from them. Because with money, let's say you did tshuva, you return the money. But when you hurt a person's feelings, when you bring up something of their past, you can't return that. You've already damaged them, you've hurt them. And so there's no kind of restitution that you could do. And that's why the Talmud says that Ona Devarim, paining a person with words, is worse than paining them financially. But getting back, the commonality here is when the Torah talks about these things, it ends off, the pasuk says, Ani Hashem, I am God. And the commentaries tell us that why is that declaration made, I am God? Because again, with these type of things, you can get away with it. People won't know. The guy might not know. There's no repercussions necessarily. But God knows everything. And so therefore a person has to be very, very cognizant of the fact that everything they do, even though it might not get discovered by anybody else, still God knows everything. And so they should take pains to be very, very careful not to cause pain to another person, be it financially, especially with words, whether in business or their life or any of that. Always remember, Ani Hashem, God says, I'm God. I know everything going on. Make sure that you have the highest order of ethics when dealing with a person in everyday situations. Have a good Shabbat.